Happy Fri-YAY, divas! Welcome to another Fri-YAY video. I'm Megan Enan, as always. And we're talking about all things, professionally creative lives and all sorts of good stuff. And what I want to talk about today is getting better at asking questions. So if you have ever been in my voice studio, you know how I feel about asking questions. And spiel every single time. So whenever I start with a new student, I always say, I've been doing this for a while. I won't say how long, but I'm just kidding. That I've been doing this for a while, and I realized over the course of many years that whenever I asked my students at the end of their lessons, "Do you have any questions?" they would look at me like deer in headlights and be like, no, I don't know. I've never had a question in my entire life. What? Like, and I realized after some time of just being like, okay, that's fine. If you don't have any questions, that's okay. And I realized that my students were interpreting this as some sort of that they didn't know, or that they were being put on the spot in a way that didn't feel okay. And I started to change it up, and I said, okay, listen, I believe deeply in the power of curiosity. I believe deeply in the power of asking questions. So I'm going to cut out the part where I say, do you have any questions? And we're just going to jump into the practicing asking questions part. So I changed my format of my lessons around so that my students knew to expect it. And at the end of the lessons, I'd say, ask me a question, because I really wanted them to get into the practice of being curious about things and being okay with asking me, showing me that there were things that they didn't know yet, which is so weird because as a teacher, you want them to feel like it's safe to ask you things, right? And so this was just one of the ways where I just cut down on the negative feelings of feeling like they didn't know everything already, and just jumped right into I don't expect you to know everything. I expect you to want to learn new things. And as part of this, I want you to practice asking questions, right? And if you've ever listened to the Studio Class podcast, my podcast that where I interview people, especially for the masterclass episodes, I always end those masterclass episodes by saying, I believe deeply in the power of curiosity. What is something that you are curious about? Because even as a master in a masterclass situation, even as the expert, even as the authority figure, you're still learning. We are lifelong learners. And so it's really important for us to demonstrate to each other that it's okay to ask questions in lots of situations. Asking questions helps you understand the world better, be a better human. so, so, so with that in mind, I really want you to take this Fri-YAY and use it as a catalyst to ask better questions, or just get in the practice of asking questions. So one of the ways that I try to do this is just by practicing in conversation, is just making sure that I'm asking questions of the other people that I'm talking to, and asking follow-up questions. A follow-up question is its own art, right? Being able to do that and striking up conversations with strangers, right? My friend Michael Hall is, the absolute authority figure on this. And so if you've ever met Michael, just take a little bit of Michael goodness into your life, and practice and say, it's okay to say hello to somebody if you're both standing in line, or if you are at the same function, it's okay to talk to them. I especially want you to practice being in your community settings where you're like shared values, shared experiences, wherever you're going. If you're going to a conference, if you're going to a concert, if you're going to a networking event, especially there, you're supposed to, right? Is that in all of these settings, I really want you to practice being the person who asks the question, right? Just asks a question. So showing up and saying, tell me what you're excited about, like playing, what's some repertoire that you're working on right now? What's something that One of my go-to questions is, what's filling up your heart right now? Which is a question that I've been told like I can get away with apparently, but I suggest finding your own version of this, which is asking people not necessarily about like what's their work situation or whatever, but ask them what their passions are. Ask them about what gets them excited. Ask them what they're really deeply interested in right now. And that can, because that can be anything. and and they can always shut you down, and then like that's on them for not wanting to participate, but you still asked the question. So so I want you to practice asking questions. I also want you to practice asking questions in a way that engender conversation, right? That encourage more conversation. So you know the difference between, like, don't ask yes or no questions, because then people will shut it down easier. Saying something along the lines of, like, asking them, what's something that you're really interested in right now, and let them go on that for a second, and then ask a follow-up question. Oh, that's so fascinating. I've never known somebody that's been into heli skiing before. I only heard about that on Mission Impossible once. Can you tell me more about it? When did you get into that? Right? It doesn't have to be heli skiing. It can be whatever it is that they're talking about. I just want you to realize that you can always ask that further question. And this is a chance for you to really learn, what are the things that you're interested in. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day where I was saying about kind of advanced networking, right? Is being able to know what your interests are at the moment, and asking questions that give you information about things that you're interested in, while that other people feel like they get to talk and they get to share, and it's going to go back and forth, right? So find something that you're like, oh my gosh, hella skiing, I didn't realize that you were into that. A thing that a hobby that most people don't know that I'm into is XYZ, whatever it is for you. So I want you to practice asking this. One of the things that really came up when my students were practicing this, when I'd say, okay, I was like, even if you're unsure, just start with a question word, like who, what, when, where, why, doesn't matter how. You start with a question word, and just really, I like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? If you're talking to somebody whose career you emulate, or are inspired by, is ask them about, what's something that you felt was really a turning point in your career. Or say something like, I've really been inspired by this. What are some of the things that you're inspired by? Just have that deeper conversation. And and don't let it just be like, tell me everything, right? Tell, like, questions that are not really questions about anything are really off-putting to the person that you're having a conversation with, because they don't know what you're interested in. So if you can help people be more clear about the things that you're interested in, then it's a lot easier to, like, jump into that conversation. Are you really interested in the kind of career that they've had, how they've done a lot of touring, something like that? Then you can say, wow, I've been really curious about touring lately. I've been thinking about how to build a tour, or like what the financial parameters look like of that. Do you have any do you have any stories about when you first started doing this that really helped you understand how it worked better? And just practicing this more and more and more. Also, please ask non-musicians questions. I think that one of the reasons that I say that curiosity is a superpower is because when you start realizing that everybody around you has incredible stories to share, has incredible insights to share, it's really going to open you up to the world, and how much insight you can take in to your own work. Really, people have such great things to tell you, like their stories, their life stories are are so fascinating that it should help you, like, think about your art making in a new way, right? Think about your music making in a new way. Do not be afraid to jump into those kinds of conversations and ask questions that are going to allow you to really see the world from somebody else's perspective, right? So please, please, divas, take this moment and practice asking questions. When you're in conversation, you don't have to talk the whole time. Like, I promise you, everybody wants to have a back and forth, right? When you are in conversation, the easiest way to, like, feel balanced is to ask people questions and ask a follow-up question. Likely they will also ask you a question, and then it can go back and forth. It doesn't have to feel like you're in a spotlight constantly. And the best way to, like, not be stuck in that spot is just to say, how about you? What is like, what is this thing for you? And just practice getting into that thing. So this seems like a silly silly thing, but I promise you, it is more challenging than than you'd be led to believe. So I really want you to challenge yourself. If you already feel like you're an expert or like at asking questions or being the person who asks questions, ask yourself, what might I not be considering yet? Right? Take that next step and say, do I in which settings do I not feel like I can ask as many questions, or in which settings do I need to lead by example and look like I'm still engaging in the process of curiosity, right? So take that as your challenge for this Fri-YAY. And as always, divas, not just one, all of you, is stay sparkly inside and out. And I'll talk to you later.